Well, hello and welcome to this lecture number 9, where we're going to discuss trustworthiness and research. And as usual, when we start a new lecture, I'll try to convince you that trustworthiness, like this concept, is relevant. So it's basically important because of two things. One is quite basic, and it's maybe the root of why we need to discuss trustworthiness. And it is because as a reader, you need to be sure that you can trust this research. Yeah, I mean, I think that is the core of why we need to discuss this. And nowadays, well, it sounds a bit cliche, but nowadays is there like an increasing number of fraud, unethical behavior, and manipulation. We will also discuss this on research ethics. And also there is a lot of things going on in the academic environment where there is pressure for, and it's rewarding this kind of just producing things, papers, books, rather than actually contributing to a better understanding and the development of knowledge. So it seems like the context is also kind of giving more importance to trustworthiness, because it's getting much more difficult to decide if we should trust this study or not. And that's the perspective from the person who is reading the research. But from the perspective of the person who is writing the research, we need to talk about trustworthiness, because it's not that simple to show trustworthiness. It's not like instructions manual or like a recipe where you will learn how to do it. And this is because of the complex methodologies and methods that exist. So we need to address each method and each methodology differently while showing trustworthiness, while showing the reader that he or she should trust what we are writing. So from both perspectives, it makes sense and is needed. And now I always start with why and what. So the next slide is what. What is trustworthiness? Because it sounds strange. Maybe give you like some hints in here. Also, the name is trust. So it's basically why and how can we trust this piece of research. And from the writer perspective, it's about how can I convince the person who is reading to trust what I'm saying. So in very simple way, in the most simplest form, trustworthiness is about validity and reliability. And validity, also in the most simplest form, is about answering to this question. Are we measuring the right things? And not only yes and no. How are we sure that we are measuring the right things? Why are we sure that we are measuring the right things? And reliability, the other aspect, and it's also in its simpler form, it refers to, are we measuring the things right? Are we actually doing this correctly? Are we doing this coherently? And again, it's not only yes or no, it is how are we sure? Why are we sure that we are measuring things right? So it's basically these two things. Keep this in mind through the whole lecture. And then, why do we need a lecture on this? Why don't we just say this in 2 minutes? Why do we need to go deeper? It is because to make this work in your thesis or in your paper, is there, again, there, as I said in here, there is not a simple answer, like a simple recipe, and even more complicated, depending on the paradigm where you are situating your research. If you are going to be more subjective or more objective, and thus your methodology can be quantitative or qualitative, the way we approach to trustworthiness is a bit different. So because of that, we are going to divide today's lecture in quantitative and qualitative research, where I will go into the aspects you need to report and how you can address that also in your research design. It will be always a work in parallel. On one side, I will remind you of the things that you have to report in your method section, the concepts that you need to report, and in parallel, the things that you need to keep in mind while you are designing your research, the things you need to remember where you're thinking about doing interviews or while doing a survey, all of how to analyze all of these things. So always keep that parallel mindset. What you need to write in your method section about trustworthiness and what you need to take into consideration while designing your research. So I think I'll stop this introductory video here, and then we'll start with quantitative research.